Zero time to waste. After the Panthers defeated the Leafs in Game 7 on Sunday, the Panthers quickly turn around and will face the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final. Today, we will cross it over with Zach Martin of Locked On Hurricanes to give our biggest storylines, key players to watch, and our series predictions.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this special Eastern Conference Final crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Carolina Hurricanes podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. For everybody on the Hurricanes feed, let me introduce myself. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MonoMan12, and thankful to be joined by the host of the Locked On Hurricanes podcast, also the one of the co-hosts of the Surgecast and credentialed writer for the Hockey Writers, Zach Martin. And Zach, I want to start off this show with how both of us and hockey fans are winners when it comes to this series coming up, because the fact that this Eastern Conference Final is on TNT and the fact that the Leafs didn't win, you don't have the Hurricane fans, if they would have had to deal with Paul Bissonnette hyping up the Leafs, and the fact that the Panthers are in it, all neutral hockey fans don't get to deal with that. So, and also, long live the Southeast Division. Although they haven't been in the same division in quite a while, they meet again in this playoff series. So thankful to be doing this crossover with you, my friend.
Right back at you, Armando. It's great finally getting to be able to talk to us face to face. I know we've talked online a lot, but it's good to finally do this, man. Yeah, and thankfully, like you said, no hyping up of other teams and stuff like that. And like you said, long live the Southeast. You got to keep it strong. Kind of wish it was the same division again. I miss it, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, man, this is going to be a fun series. It's going to be a lot of people are going to be like, "Hey, this is boring hockey." Well, get used to it because these teams are going to bag skate the crap out of each other, but it's going to be a fun series. I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's a nice little rematch, but some new faces and guys who missed that matchup are available for this one. So there's a lot to discuss in this episode.
Yeah, no Andrei Svechnikov for the Eastern Conference Final Series 2 years ago for the for the Hurricanes, and then it's crazy to think the amount of turnover that the Panthers had even from 2 years ago. I mean, their fourth line was Ryan Lomberg, Eric Stahl, and Colin White for them. So a lot different new cast for the Florida Panthers than even on the Carolina Hurricanes side of things. Brett Pesce walked in free agency. Brady Shea is also another one that is no longer there. But I want to go to you when it comes to just the biggest storylines, because the way I view it for the Carolina Hurricanes is just they came in with a new GM, Eric Tulsky, which was really set up well from the previous regime in Don Waddell, which I'm looking at their cap situation. It looks so clean for what's going to be coming. A lot of the UFAs are going to be guys who are 30 and above. So, and to think that they were still able to get Rod Brind'Amour not only signed, but they were able to get his assistants still a little bit of a pay raise. I think that's a big storyline for the Hurricanes and just what a lot of people saw as a gap year. But I want to get your perspective on just the biggest storylines for the Hurricanes, on how they were viewed, and then how they were able to win both of their series easily in 5 games against the New Jersey Devils and against the President's Trophy winner in Washington.
Yeah, no, of course. I think that, like you said, Armando, that kind of was a big thing, is the fact they took care of their assistants, took care of Rod. And then you look at the cap situation. Like next year, you're looking at $29 million in cap space, and they're looking at maybe one top 6 forward, maybe a defenseman if they really want to, but mainly it's just depth. And they have their goaltending locked up for next year too, in Anderson and Kochetkov. So that's kind of big. To where, yeah, even in a gap year where people thought, they were probably going to miss the playoffs, so they were going to struggle. No, they exceeded a lot of expectations. And I think one of the big things is the fact that you're looking at a team that even had, you turned over Marty Necas and Jack Drury for Rantanen and Hall. Rantanen went to Dallas, but you get Logan Stain coming back, and you picked up Mark Jankowski for a 5th rounder, and you got a lot of draft capital. and then you go and extend Taylor Hall, who's a former MVP, for $3 million, a little over $3 million. I think the fact that they've worked this cap out so well, and the fact that this team has just been pulling in the same direction, I think that's what helped this team make the Eastern Conference Final. Because of that, it's a system that works. If you fit this system, you're going to be fine. I think that's what this series is going to be, is which system is going to blink first type of thing. And I think that's kind of a big deal where you look at this roster. And it's the healthiest Hurricanes team under the Brendan Moore era coming into the playoffs. Because like you said, no Andrei Svechnikov 2 seasons ago. Even then, Orlov wasn't with the team. And then you look at Shane Gostisbehere, full season with him. Sean Walker's come in. Underrated season for him as well. So you look at this roster, it's just unreal. If we look at this, where this group is at, and I know we'll talk about a little bit more later too, but man, the special teams for the Hurricanes, you cannot be mad at what their numbers are at right now. But yeah, definitely it's this system has been working so great. And the fact that you're looking at a fully healthy Hurricanes team with everyone pulling in the same direction has been a big storyline for the Hurricanes. But for people who haven't really been following the Panthers, Armando, what's kind of been the big story for you guys getting back to the Eastern Conference Final for the 3rd season in a row? Because my goodness, you guys have been on a run the last few years.
Yeah, and this is a matchup of just two teams that are just very similar when it comes to just how their play is, when it comes to just big bodies, and when it comes to just possession-heavy teams. The Carolina Hurricanes Corsi 4 percentage during the playoffs is 58%. The Panthers are not that much far right behind them in 56%. Also, goals against and PK percentage are both 1 and 2. They're right there neck and neck. So, as Paul Maurice said, when it came to getting to Game 7 against the Leafs, both teams deserve to be here. But it also applies to the Eastern Conference Final Series for Carolina and Florida. But the biggest storyline for the Panthers is just once again trying to prove that they are the team to beat. And I mean, for the Panthers, I mean, business like usual. I mean, even when it came to Game 1 of the regular season, they put the Stanley Cup on the table, and then they see their banner raise up, and that lasts not even 2 minutes when the Panthers come out, and then they're ready to go, ready to play hockey. And I mean, it was a lot of up and downs. I mean, even for the Panthers, I mean, some injuries to start off from even Game 1 of the preseason with someone like Tomas Nosek. Alexander Barkov gets injured in the 2nd game of the season. Matthew Tkachuk in the 3rd game of the season, and then they're having to go through these injuries. And then Matthew Tkachuk in the Four Nations, which opened up a whole bunch of cap space to bring in some of the complementary pieces like Brad Marchand right at the buzzer, and then Seth Jones. It's funny because the Panthers had an afternoon game against the Flames, and then later that night they make that trade for Seth Jones, and I mean they fit it in for their championship window, which we're expected to at least go until 2030 at the absolute latest for the Panthers. And I mean everything's just fitting in, and I mean, and dealing with multiple suspensions with Aaron Ekblad with the 20 games and even his 2-game suspension in the middle of this playoff run for what he did to Brandon Hagel. And it took a while for the Panthers in the Leaf series to even get their rush defense to manage things for the Toronto Maple Leafs, with Ekblad missing Game 1 and then even not carrying it over. It just goes to show that you need your blue line to be there for multiple games to get those reps together. And thankfully the Panthers were able to put a little bit of a fire out when it came to dealing with that situation on and off the ice. And really the fact is that this team is still very young. The older pieces on the team are mostly Bobrovsky, Brad Marchand, Dmitry Kulikov. For the Panthers, it's not a situation where they find themselves cap strapped long term as well. So I think that's a big benefit for them.
Yeah, no, that's, like you said, that's just one of those things where you guys had to go through your season and kind of find bodies that you need to. Same thing for the Hurricanes. You lose Anderson once again for most of the season, then you lose Pierre Kachekov for a little bit, then you're having to go down to Dustin Tokarski, Spencer Martin, all those guys, try to figure out how that's going to work, and you get them back. And then you get some other injuries that kind of just popped up here and there. You lose Seth Jarvis for a few games. You lose Shane Gostisbehere, but then you got to go through all the trades they have to as well. And December wasn't great. You went 6-6-1, and then you had a very bad February where you won. I mean, it was only 9 games, but you only won 2 of them, and then you had to kind of jumpstart your other months too. So yeah, I think with these teams is the fact that it's almost linear paths of just going through different struggles at different parts of the season, having to go get bodies at the trade deadline. I think that's what's kind of helped both of these teams out, is that where you see teams kind of load up on big names, like, okay, big name superstar guys. Where I think for our teams, it's kind of no. Can you fit our system? You can? Great. Let's get you here. And I think that's what's kind of helped out is that this is going to be a system versus system of who's going to blink first. I think that's kind of where this is where I'm looking at for both of these teams. And I think just where they're at, they're kind of just almost formed the same, but almost also a little bit different too, to where it's like, who's going to blink first? That's kind of what's, for me, that's where the series is going to come down to.
No doubt. And when it comes to just the Carolina Hurricanes and how they built themselves to get here, I mean, it was calculated swings just like how the Panthers did. And I don't see the Rantanen trade as like them striking out. I think of actually them making that trade and actually getting some runway a little bit with him was actually seen more as a double, not necessarily a home run, because you were still able to get some draft capital back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's I mean, Eric Tulsky, his resume, that was an on-season topic about how how well versed he is as a person, and how he's able to apply this in the Carolina front office and still able to put themselves in a position to win. And I think it's going to be a pretty classic series coming up which starts on Tuesday night for the Panthers and the Hurricanes. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss our key players to watch in this series, as these two teams will be facing off against each other once again in the Eastern Conference Final. So stay right here on this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Carolina Hurricanes. But first, we're going to tell you guys all about wonderful pistachios. And are you looking for a snack that's both nutritious and delicious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. And plus, I love the no shells variety, which is the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether it's snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snackin' and crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to this crossover edition between the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Carolina Hurricanes podcast. Thank you once again for making both of our podcasts your first listen of the day. Armando Velez with Zach Martin here on the show to discuss everything in the world of the Panthers and the Hurricanes. And I'm going to give it to you first on who you think the key players to watch for the Carolina Hurricanes are when it comes to this Eastern Conference Final matchup between the two teams.
Yeah, no, of course, Armando. We kind of already talked about him, but I really want to dive into this guy a lot more. It is Andrei Svechnikov. Of course, we both know wasn't there, got hurt like a week or two after the trade deadline in 23, kind of a big blow for the Hurricanes. But now he comes into this playoff, and you're kind of like, you've been waiting for him all season to get going. This playoff, he's hit that next level, and that's the thing that the Hurricanes have been waiting for, is him to hit that next gear. And if you've seen him at practice, you've seen him in games this whole playoff run, his smile's big, the confidence is back, that swagger of Andrei Svechnikov is there. And the thing, too, is his maturity level has gone to the next level, where the last couple seasons he's just taken penalties on penalties on penalties. Here's the thing, though. 2 penalty minutes, all playoffs, and it was just a random 4-on-4 type of penalty where he didn't really do anything, but you know how officiating has been, just sends him into the box regardless. So he's been playing some really great hockey in terms of that aspect, too. And you look at where he's at. He's got 8 goals. That's doubled more than what Seth Jarvis has. Like, that is very, very big of how that's been. And he's second on the team in points with 9. He is a +6. He leads all forwards in the plus-minus. He's tied with Chatfield and Orlov. He's only behind Jacob Slavin. Thing, too, is how about 3 game-winning goals for this guy? Like, if you're talking about someone who's really come up big for the Hurricanes in clutch moments, it is definitely Andrei Svechnikov. I mean, he got a hat trick against the Devils, scored a big one in Game 5 to help get that comeback, scored against Washington. He scored 4 goals in round 1, 4 goals in round 2. He's just playing some stellar hockey right now. Obviously, a key player to watch. I mean, Frederik Andersen, my absolute goodness, what a run. For me, Armando, this is a Conn Smythe level run for Frederik Andersen. Career best goals against average in the playoffs in his career. How about a 136? That's 0.05 better than when he was with the Ducks in the 16 playoffs, where he was a 141. His save percentage, 937. That's only 0.010 shy of his career best also that same season with the Ducks, where it was a 947. How about 7-2? He's also got a shutout in over 520 minutes. He has been absolutely stellar for the Hurricanes. I've been saying this on the Locked On Hurricanes. If my fans have been, people have been listening. If the Hurricanes go and do the distance, he'll be joining Cam Ward as the only two guys to ever win the Conn Smythe, and they're both netminders. That's how good Frederik Andersen's been. And if there's one more guy I have to talk about, well, you can't talk about, everyone's got to have good offense, got to have good goaltending, but you got to have elite defense. None other than Jacob Slavin. I mean, the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. Yeah. Absolute shows out in the Four Nations. He's been just an absolute workhorse for the Canes. Like I said, he's +7 in the playoffs, leading the entire team. 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists, got a game winner, scored an overtime goal as well.
Yeah.
And the thing too is, like, when he was in the All-Star game a few seasons back, 4 for 4 in the shot accuracy. He's got some sneaky accuracy shooting that I don't think people realize. And that's on top of him going 0 penalty minutes so far this playoffs. And the fact too that he had his third consecutive 8 penalty minutes in a regular season for the third year in a row. That's just how good Jacob Slavin's been.
Yeah, and Spencer Carberry, I remember after the second round, just giving so much praises to Jacob Slavin. And to think that, I mean, that game one between Carolina and Washington, just the amount of peppering shots and then the one shot that Logan Thompson gives up is from distance. I mean, it just goes to show that when you wear teams down, you could overthink on certain shots, and then that's the one that goes in to win it, to start the series off with a bang for the Canes there. So for me, here are my key players to watch for the Panthers here. I'm going to go with Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, really turned it on towards the end of the regular season. Really didn't have the best start to the year, but I mean, and also even in game 6 and 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, he gave up 2 goals that were through the 5-hole, and that was a little head scratching for the Panthers there. But it's a rarity whenever that does happen. But hey, he's been able to shut things down whenever he's needed to. I mean, had a hard time stopping things on the rush at the beginning of the Leaf series, but he's bounced back so well, especially from games 3 on for the Panthers there. So Sergei Bobrovsky is a very important one. Carter Verhaeghe is another one. 81 playoff games for Swaggy, 30 goals. And it's going to be very important when the opposition when they face off against the Carolina Hurricanes, not only when they don't have a last change, but that second line has to be careful when it comes to icing the puck, because they're not that team that Paul Maurice sends out when it comes to D-zone draws. Most of their starts come off with the offensive zone, and that's very important when it comes to just how they clear their end of the ice when it comes to that line getting on the ice, and that could smell trouble. And Carter Verhaeghe, he came up big in game 3 against the Leafs, so I think that this could be that series where it's going to be hard to get goals for the most part. I think there's going to be a lot of like 2-1, 1-0 games even for these two. But here's the thing: the Panthers have 17 different goal scorers, and 12 of them have more than one goal. For what it's worth, Carolina has 15 different goal scorers. 8 of them have more than one. So I wrote a little bit of a note there. And I'm gonna go with the Panthers bottom pair. I've seen how Nate Schmidt can be a little impulsive when it comes to jumping into play and making errant passes in the middle. So it's going to be very important for that bottom pair of Schmidt and Kulikov that they are still not getting too much in the offensive zone, and that if that they have a forward back and they communicate and that they are able to protect things there. And then the last one, Matthew Tkachuk. He's struggled, and obviously the injury at the Four Nations didn't help his cause for how long he's been out, and his ability to get accumulated back into the mix for the Panthers, even though he scored 3 goals in the series against the Tampa Bay Lightning, including 2 of them in game 1. But but if you really want to go far and even lift the cup again, we can't see any more goose eggs from Matthew Tkachuk. So I think that's very important for the Panthers on just how he's able to get in on the game, because you're gonna see Alexander Barkov, likely because they're going to start on the road. I'm expecting the Jordan Stahl line to be matched up against the Barkov line. I'm interested to see if they put the Aho line against the Matthew Tkachuk line, which I mean, great story for Seth Jarvis. He's one of the last players to get cut from the World Junior team for Team Canada, and then he's on the Four Nations team as a main contributor for Canada. So also that's a scary line of Svechnikov, Aho, and Seth Jarvis there. So that's one that I'm very wary about.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing I think it's underrated because those three guys together have combined for 29 points. Like all top. They're all like Aho and Jarvis both have 10 and Svechnikov has 9. Like, yeah, that's kind of the big boys are definitely rolling for the Canes too. And I would just say if there is a line that I am kind of worried about, obviously Barkov is definitely one of them. Of course, we got Sam Reinhart, but I'm very familiar with Carter Verhaeghe's game. I've loved his game since he's with Calgary, with him and Bennett and Tkachuk. I mean, even with Matty T being not on the score sheet a lot, that's still a line who could still do some damage if you give him the opportunity. So, yeah, there's definitely some guys, in particular, some lines where I'm kind of like, gotta shut those guys down, especially that first one. But that second one is gonna be very sneaky. Even that third line too. Like, my goodness, both these teams are deep. These are deep teams. So
and Luosterainen, Lundell, and Marchand. Which crazy to think. If you told me back in mid-April that Eetu Luosterainen would be leading all skaters in road points, including 7 of them in series clinching games in Game 7 against Toronto and then Game 5 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, I would have called you crazy. But that's been a big influence from Brad Marchand and of course his running mate on his third line, who he also played on the same line at the Four Nations in Anton Lundell for Team Finland. But we got a lot more to get to on this edition of the show, where we're going to discuss some under the radar players and we're going to discuss our series predictions coming up. We're going to discuss that more next here on this crossover edition between the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Carolina Hurricanes. Segment 3 here on this Eastern Conference Final preview of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Carolina Hurricanes. Game 1 of this series does start on Tuesday night, May 20th, 8 p.m. on TNT, and then it'll go every other day until the series ends. It could possibly end on go the latest on Sunday, June 1st for both teams. So I want to give you the floor first on just the under the radar players that and a possible X factor for the Carolina Hurricanes here, as we still don't know the status of Jalen Chatfield. If you want to give us an update, if he's not your X factor, but if you want to provide us an update on his status for Game 1 and beyond.
Yeah, so before we jump into X factors and stuff, Jalen Chatfield is right now kind of questionable. They're going to see how he does at practice tomorrow on Tuesday, because Rod Brind'Amour wants to give him an extra practice to see how it goes. If not, most likely could he be turning to either Scott Morrow or Alexander Nikishin, because Morrow did jump in with Shane Gostisbehere. So that's kind of like the only question for the Hurricanes in terms of that. So we're going to be waiting to see by game time if he is ready to go. Now, if we're talking some X factors, we've mentioned him a little bit, but Seth Jarvis for me is a big X factor. If he keeps going like he has, I think he's going to be very key, because he led the team in goals this year with 32. Even missing 7 fewer games, led the team in that category, had 67 points once again for a second year in a row while still missing that many games. Seth Jarvis is a big X factor for me. Underlying guys, Taylor Hall, 2 goals, 6 points. He's only got 2 penalty minutes. He's been absolutely stellar for the Hurricanes. That's why they signed him to that 3-year, $3.216 million contract. He loves it here. They locked up a former MVP, former first overall. That's very huge in terms of that. Another guy who I still think people have not talked about enough, Jackson Blake, 2 goals, 5 points in his rookie season, which I don't think got enough shine. 17 goals and 34 points. Not bad for the Hobie Baker finalists from North Dakota to have a rookie season like that, where he had that many goals in a season where everyone's looking at Mitch Cobb and Celebrini and all of them. So I say another underrated guy that everyone needs to keep an eye on is definitely Blake. Definitely Hall. And then if we had to throw an extra one in just because, how about Logan Stankoven? 3 goals, 5 points, come in and has fit in absolutely well. He's basically like Seth Jarvis, just a couple inches shorter, but he's an absolute bulldog. This dude, some about Western Canadian hockey players, man, I tell you what, they are not afraid to absolutely hound you for the puck and not afraid to throw above their weight. So those are some guys I'm definitely looking at. But for Armando, what are your kind of notable X factors that we should keep an eye on for this series?
Mentioned him a little bit at the end of the segment, but the third line of Etulis Durainen, Lundell, and Brad Marchand, because we mentioned about the matchups on who's going to be that the fact that we're going to see Barkov matched up with the best defensive line, them not getting the last change, and also to see how the Panthers are going to, how that third line is going to could possibly expose the Carolina Hurricanes due to the fact that they've had just this scoring by committee approach. Crazy to think Sam Bennett is leading the Panthers in goals with 6, but the thing is they're getting scoring from everywhere, and just the fact that not only is it a scoring line for that Los Durainen, Lundell, and Marchand line, but they can provide the hits as well as. But the thing is, the Carolina Hurricanes are not going to be rattled by that. They are a very mature group that really plays to the identity of their coach, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that line whenever it does happen with the post whistle stuff for them. Another one I'm going to be interested to see for as far as a possible X factor, Seth Jones. The Panthers haven't necessarily been the best on the power play when it comes to the playoffs, but I do think that the fact that they had their Brandon Montour replacement, he's worked so well. He could protect the blue line. He could also skate well. A good two-way guy. I think he's going to be very important. And Gustav Forsling is another one. Former Hurricane Gustav Forsling, who the Panthers got on waiver from that one. And the fact that who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah, but just how he matches up against the top guys for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm going to be interested to see what it's going to look like for them. But it's crazy because I mentioned we didn't go too much into the PK for both the Panthers and the Hurricanes, but oh my goodness, the Panthers. I looked at Money Puck real quick on penalty PIM taken. The Carolina Hurricanes are the 7th best at exactly 50% in PIM taken. The Panthers are 54%. Which that favors Carolina. So it's going to be important for the Panthers to stay out of the box, and when they do get on the power play, they got to convert, because oh my goodness, if there's anything that Carolina does well when it comes to the penalty kill, is how they swarm you right when you enter at the blue line, which the Panthers, their bread and butter when it comes to entering the zone, especially at 5-on-5, is dump and chase. How are they going to be do they have to dump their way to goals on the power play? That's going to be interesting to see. But at the same time, if they can win their board battles there and then have the Carolina Hurricanes spread out, it could help them win. So I don't think you can have a goose egg in special teams for the Panthers here. You absolutely have to convert. Matthew Tkachuk's hasn't been as much of a big net front presence there, which is why I spoke about him earlier on just how important he is. They got to go back to that net front presence and just have him bother Frederick Anderson there. So I think that's going to be important for how they convert on the power play for them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what the Hurricanes, like you said, you're looking at a team whose net PK is 96.7%. Of course, it helps when you score a shorthanded goal.
Outstanding.
Jordan Marnock against the New Jersey Devils, but overall 93.3%. They are 28 for 30 on the PK. They went through the first round 15 for 15. That's how locked it. Like the thing is, Armando, like their second power play goal they gave up against the Capitals, it was a 5-on-3 to Alexander Ovechkin, and that went off of Freddie's shoulder and off the crossbar and went in. Like that's just putting a puck in like in a very donut-sized hole. That's basically what it was, and somehow went in. But yeah, they've been absolutely lights out on the PK. And the thing too is they have so many guys you can throw out there. You got Stahl and Martin you can throw out there. Aho, Jarvis. They almost turned their penalty kill into a power kill because Seth Jarvis had 5 shorties this season. I think he was either tied or right there with Sam Bennett in terms of that. So that's kind of huge. And
Sam Reinhart, but yeah.
Sorry, Sam Reinhart, yeah. And it was one of the Sims. I can't remember which one it was, but you look at how. Then you can also go to like maybe a Jankowski and Carey. Like they have so many guys they can go with on the PK. Then even on the power play, like the big question mark was how is their power play going to be? And because they only scored 3 from January to mid-April, but now they are actually 28.1%. They're second only to the Dallas Stars of all the teams that are remaining. But Dallas has played 3 more games. The Hurricanes are 9 for 32 on the power play. Like, yeah, they're going to have to make their chances as well against the Florida Panthers. And as long as the Hurricanes can limit their penalties and forces them more 5-on-5, I think this is going to be very interesting whose 5-on-5 game is going to be better. Because Carolina all season has been a better 5-on-5 team. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays out. With special teams, it's going to be a big factor in the series, I believe.
Yeah, I'm looking at power play percentage for both teams, 28.1% for the Hurricanes, 20.5%. But the Panthers slightly have a little bit more of the goals for in total, just by 0.35. But it's crazy how those numbers can be a little skewed in some of these games twice against Toronto, scoring 6. Game 1 against Tampa Bay, scoring 6. So sometimes when they're scoring more than, if you give them 4 goals for the Panthers, chances are it's going to get up to 5 and 6 for them.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the same for the Panthers. And also when it comes to the Panthers penalty kill, also adjustments that they've had to make because, I mean, Palmer's replaced the whole 4th line with Mackie Semiskevich, Nico Sturman, Jesper Bokus, and then bringing in AJ Greer, Tomas Nosek, Jonah Gadjevich, which Jonah Gadjevich doubled the amount of goals that Austin Matthews had in the second round series alone. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
For that Jonah Gadjevich was going to have more, but
yeah,
Tomas Nosek is another penalty killer for the Panthers, who is going to be a part of that for the Panthers. And also, if it's not him, you could put someone else there. So Etu Luostarinen has had different partners throughout this playoff run when the Panthers are shorthanded. But Zach, it is now that time that in the show when it comes to giving our predictions for who will win this Eastern Conference Final Series. So I'm going to start with you. Who do you think will come out on top in this series, and who will advance to the Stanley Cup Final?
Well, I'll say this. I know I could see this definitely going the distance for sure because these teams are so close. However, I think Frederick Aaronson's going to steal at least one game in this series, and I got Carolina winning this in 6 and making the Cup Final for the first time since 2006. Armando, how are you feeling about the series? What's your prediction?
I think the Panthers are still riding high. I just think that the fact that similarly to 2023 when they won in Boston Game 7 and had to go immediately to Toronto just 2 days later, they won both of those games in Toronto. I don't think it's going to be the same thing this time around for the Panthers on sweeping the first 2 games, but I do believe they will at least steal one on the road. Road Warriors. The Panthers are not afraid to play on the road. Neither is Carolina. So this is not going to be a sweep like last time, but I do believe that the Panthers are going to find a way to win this series, and I do believe that they are just that type of team that continues to wear down, and they've proven over and over again that they've gotten better as the series has gone on. So I am going to say the Florida Panthers will win this series in 6 games. So we both have our individual teams in 6 games. It's going to be a very fun series between these two. It's going to be interesting to see the back and forth between the coaches here, and just the fact that we are going to, if you love the fundamentals of hockey, this is your series. If you just love goals for the sake of goals, this is probably not your series. And Zach, I do believe that this is even if Carolina does not win the series, I do believe that what they have is such a continued sustained product. So especially with what we talked about with their cap situation, I do believe it's a program that's continuing. That's just right there. And this won't be. I don't think this is going to be the last time that they'll meet in a playoff.
No, a lot more in the future for sure.
No doubt. But Zach, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the show as we preview this Eastern Conference Final Series. For my listeners, if you want to follow Zach on X, you can follow him at OneTrueZach and Locked On Hurricanes anywhere you listen to podcasts. On the Hurricanes feed, you can find me on X at MonoMan12 and follow the show account on X at LO_FLA Panthers. So I'm Armando Velez. That's Zach Martin, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Hurricanes. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.